I wish I could say things got better after that day at the hospital. But the truth is, everything started to fall apart. It was like watching a slow-motion accident, knowing you can't stop it, knowing you're the one getting hurt. Emily became quieter after the hospital visit. She stayed in her room a lot, barely eating, barely talking. I tried to reach her, but she pushed me away. I thought maybe she was homesick, or maybe she was hiding something. I didn't want to believe the ugly thoughts in my head. I didn't want to believe my own sister could betray me. Richard changed too. He stopped coming to our room at night. He started sleeping in the guest room, saying he needed space. He barely looked at me. When he did, his eyes were cold, like I was a stranger. Sometimes, I caught him staring at Emily's door, his face full of worry, or was it something else? I didn't know anymore. One morning, I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard them talking in the hallway. Their voices were low, urgent. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I felt a knot in my stomach. When I walked in, they both went silent. Richard looked away. Emily stared at the floor. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab them both and shake the truth out of them. But I just stood there, frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. That afternoon, I found Emily sitting on the back porch, staring at the garden. She looked so small, so lost. I sat beside her, the silence heavy between us. "Emily," I said, my voice shaking, "please talk to me. I know something is wrong. I'm your sister. I love you." She started to cry, her shoulders shaking. I reached out to hold her, but she pulled away. "I'm sorry, Grace," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I didn't know what she was sorry for. I was too afraid to ask. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of Richard's footsteps in the hallway. I heard him stop outside my door, then walk away. I felt like I was disappearing, like I was fading out of my own life. The next morning, everything changed. I was in the kitchen when Richard came in, his face hard, his eyes red. He didn't say good morning. He didn't even look at me. "Grace," he said, his voice cold, "we need to talk." My hand started to shake. I put down the cup I was holding, afraid I would drop it. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He took a deep breath, like he was preparing for a fight. "Emily is pregnant," he said. The words hit me like a slap. I felt the room spin. I grabbed the edge of the counter to steady myself. "Pregnant?" I repeated, my voice hollow. He nodded, his jaw clenched. "She's carrying my child." I stared at him, not understanding. My mind refused to believe it. My own sister. My own husband. I felt something break inside me. I wanted to scream, to hit him, to run away. But I just stood there, numb. "How could you?" I whispered. "How could you do this to me?" He didn't answer. He just looked away, his face full of shame, or maybe it was anger. I couldn't tell anymore. Emily came into the kitchen, her eyes red from crying. She looked at me, her face full of guilt. "I'm sorry, Grace," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean for this to happen." I couldn't look at her. I couldn't look at either of them. I felt like I was drowning, like I couldn't breathe. I ran to my room and locked the door. I fell to the floor, sobbing, my whole body shaking. I cried until there were no tears left. I cried until I was empty. For days, I stayed in my room. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I didn't talk to anyone. Richard didn't come to check on me. Emily left food outside my door, but I couldn't touch it. I felt like a ghost, haunting my own house. One night, Richard came to my door. He knocked, but I didn't answer. "Grace," he said, his voice tired, we can't go on like this. I need a child. I need a family. I'm sorry, but you have to leave. I stared at the door, my heart pounding. I wanted to beg him to change his mind, to remember the love we once had. But I knew it was useless. He had made his choice. The next morning, I packed my things. I moved slowly, my hands shaking. I looked around the room one last time, remembering all the memories, all the dreams. I took one last look at the nursery, at the empty crib, at the tiny shoes. I felt like I was leaving a part of myself behind. Emily tried to talk to me as I was leaving. She reached out to hug me, but I pulled away. "Don't," I said, my voice cold. "Don't touch me." She started to cry, but I didn't care. I walked out of the house, my head held high, my heart shattered. As I stepped into the taxi, I felt a strange pain in my stomach. I thought it was just the stress, the heartbreak. I didn't know then that something was growing inside me. I didn't know that my story was not over. I left the mansion with nothing but my suitcase and my broken heart. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what would happen next. All I knew was that I had to survive. I had to find myself again. If you are listening to me, please pray for me. Pray that I find the strength to keep going. When I left Richard's house, I thought my life was over. I thought I would never smile again. The pain was so deep, it felt like I was carrying a stone in my chest. I wandered the streets of Lagos, not knowing where to go, not knowing who to trust. I was alone, truly alone, for the first time in my life. I called my old friend, Sarah. She was the only person I could think of. When she heard my voice, she didn't ask questions. She just said, "Come. My door is open." I will never forget that kindness. She gave me a small room in her house, a place to rest my head, a place to cry in peace. The days passed slowly. I barely ate. I barely spoke. I would sit by the window, watching the world go by, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. Sometimes, I would touch my stomach, feeling the ache of emptiness, the ache of loss. I thought about Richard and Emily, about the life I had lost, about the dreams that had died. But then, something strange happened. I started to feel sick in the mornings. At first, I thought it was just the stress, the heartbreak. But the feeling didn't go away. Sarah noticed. She said, "Grace, you need to see a doctor." I didn't want to go. I was afraid of more bad news. But she insisted. At the clinic, the nurse took my hand and smiled. "You're going to be okay," she said. I wanted to believe her, but I was so tired, so afraid. The doctor ran some tests. He asked me questions. I answered in a daze, barely listening. Then he looked at me, his eyes kind. "Grace," he said, "you are pregnant. With triplets." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I thought I was dreaming. I thought it was a cruel joke. But the doctor showed me the scan, 3 tiny heartbeats flickering on the screen. I burst into tears, right there in the clinic. I cried for all the years of waiting, all the years of pain. I cried for the miracle growing inside me. Sarah hugged me, her own eyes full of tears. "God has remembered you," she whispered. I believed her. For the first time in years, I felt hope. The months that followed were not easy. Carrying 3 babies is hard, especially when your heart is still healing. But every kick, every flutter, reminded me that I was not alone. I talked to my babies every night, telling them stories, singing them songs. I told them about their father, about the love I once had, about the strength I found in myself. Word spread quickly. People heard about my story, about the woman who was called barren, now carrying triplets. Neighbors, friends, even strangers came to visit. They brought gifts, food, prayers. They called me a mother of miracles. For the first time, I felt seen. I felt loved. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, things were not as perfect as Richard and Emily had hoped. I heard stories from friends, from people who still work there. Emily's pregnancy was difficult. She was always sick, always tired. Richard was not the happy man he thought he would be. The house was full of tension, full of secrets.